I'm going to let Jaden lead it because he's been following the news closer than I have today. So go ahead.
So several things have happened today. One was Donald Trump's order, which froze some millions of federal jobs, federal benefits and programs, grants, and what have you. He's calling it a temporary freeze, but this is towards hundreds of thousands of different fields of work and positions of civil servants and what have you, and the grants that go into various programs such as Meals on Wheels, such as SNAP, such as school benefits and FAFSA, and a number of different things that people rely on in everyday scenarios. Ultimately, this froze. We saw in virtually every state, all 50 states, the portal towards Medicaid was buffering, and people did not have access for that for hours. Only recently got back online to that, and now over a dozen attorney generals out of Democratic states have pressed lawsuits against Donald Trump's illegal action, which ultimately curtailed Congress and gave him unilateral authority to direct where those funds go. He believes that this is a measure of them overspending on initiatives he does not deem reasonable. Any program that has to do with DEI or liberalism or transgenderism, as he calls it, has been subject to this massive pause, and is what is ultimately facing a challenge here. He has assigned himself this authority, and that's going towards the courts now. Everyone that has spoken on this out of the administration, including his current press secretary, said that he has the right to do it. He very much does not. And ultimately, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people have suffered out of the consequence from this.
And it sounded like nobody, because the executive order was pretty vague, nobody really knew what was going on, so everybody
Mm-hmm.
started prepping. And so I've heard stories, people I know that have had their family members that work in nonprofits be like, okay, we're going to have to lay everybody off at the end of the day. I don't know if that's still happening now. I did see that it was blocked by the federal judge as, what did he say? Blatantly unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And this is what we're going to
Lauren
watch.
Alicon blocked it today. District Judge Lauren
Yeah,
Alicon.
we're going to watch a ton, just an inundation of the court system by the Trump administration. How much of it will be successful, I don't know. But this is right now the most critical time because their goal here is to literally fill up the courts with as much as they can. Um, Obviously, if it makes it to the Supreme Court, they're probably going to be favorable to Trump. I do have, oddly enough, a little bit of faith in Coney Barrett. That's weird because I used to have a little bit of faith in Roberts, and that's gone off the rails now. But um,
Yeah.
I do think that he's obviously pushing the envelope. I don't expect the Supreme Court to sign off on a lot of this because they know like you can't give this guy that much free reign of
Mm-hmm.
authority. I would hope they wouldn't, but crazier things have happened. Um, yeah, this is going to go up the courts, and I don't know. In terms of him, I mean, basically what's happening right now is they're trying to inundate everybody to panic, just
Yes.
quit. They
Offer
offered
an
7 months.
ideological litmus test.
Right, which is not something that we've ever seen, and Republicans will cheer it on despite the fact that they complained about this, right? The Democrats are on everything. You can't complain about that now. How are they going to complain about that? The Democrats, when this turns into a disaster, they're going to turn around and do the same thing they did last time. Well, it's because the Democrats made it fail and he got rid of them. So he got rid of everybody
Right.
that was against him. But I think from a larger perspective, is this puts us in national security risk. This puts us in risk of having unqualified people in positions that they fundamentally don't understand what their role is, and just
Mm-hmm.
ideologues. And so basically, you have Donald Trump at every branch of the government, at every single spot, just like, what does Donald Trump want? Okay, that's what we'll do. And so you're going to have a bunch of yes men telling him. And will authoritarianism go on? I don't know. I also want to say this because I think this is going to be an interesting thing. When it's Donald Trump's time to leave office, um, he's almost certainly going to give the Republicans a difficult choice. And that difficult choice is really going to be, are we going to turn against Donald Trump and preserve democracy, or are we going to
Mm-hmm.
allow it? I'm not sure what the answer to that is going to be. But there will have to be some Republicans that come across the line. I suspect in 2026, if there's even elections or fair elections at this point, the Democrats are probably going to have a pretty good election. That's typically how these work with non incumbents. And they'll be left with some difficult decisions about whether or not they want to preserve their party or whether or not they want to drive this thing into the ground. Right now, they're driving into the ground. It looks really bad. We'll just have to wait it out. But as I've said and said before he even took office, it's going to be won and lost in the courts. So go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, I wanted to read just one of the measures that had been stalled out today that froze. So this is a response to that from the Meals on Wheels America Spox on the OMB pause. Quote, this uncertainty right now is creating chaos for local Meals on Wheels providers not knowing whether or not they should be serving meals today, which unfortunately means seniors will panic not knowing where their next meals will come from. Uh, there have been some levels of response on the Republican Party's part out of mayors and members of Congress, though not enough. And what's sad is that these seniors, these most vulnerable parts of our country, reside in these red states, reside in places that have been hit the hardest from this. Much of the response that I've seen from the senatorial Republicans has been that, well, it needed to happen. Well, I went to school without lunch. Why does it matter? Why should we be funding SNAP programs? This is what one of the senators said on CNN today, I believe. And this cavalier attitude is irresponsible, is reckless, and sadly has led to this massive disruption of people's livelihoods. The fact that such a massive portion of services can be flipped on and off like a switch like this is pretty scary. There was another thing today out of the Departments of Veterans Affairs had to cancel unaliving prevention training because it quote considers LGBTQ community within the wording. So the verbiage on that had to be rewritten. They've now canceled those programs. A number of different federal programs have now had to stall out, have now been paused, have now been effectively frozen because of language like that. That's what his order today mainly entails.
Right. And I had this thought today, it is suck that does suck that it's going to hurt a lot of people. This also has the adverse effect of hurting not only leftists, but this is going to hurt the right as well. And so this is going to be a learning curve for them. I What's going to happen to the economy will not be good. And especially right now, and there's one of two ways that this can go. One, Donald Trump invokes all of his awful policies and the economy just goes south in a hurry, right? I think that's probably the most likely. Uh, no more than 2 months, we'll have a better picture. It could be a few weeks. We're already seeing eggs run out. I know that. Well, no, actually, you know what? That is Trump's fault. You blame Biden for it. Why not? Why would I care
Hmm.
about the truth? No, I'm kidding. But he doesn't have anything to do with the eggs running out. But you can imagine with tariffs and with migrants, et cetera, there may just be full on food shortages, and he's going to become really unpopular real quick, and he's going to have to deal with this. And then maybe, and through that, he goes, "Oh, I messed up." Don't think that's likely. And I think that what's more likely is that it goes on until it becomes either A, really, really bad and he reverses course because he's unpopular and he doesn't like that, or B, that he actually doesn't care about a single person in this country, which I think is very, very likely. And as a result, he thinks that MAGA suffering, that everybody suffering, is going to be beneficial to the United States. And so we just may watch the decline of America with this guy at the helm. That's definitely a real possibility. We'll have to see how it plays out and how far they want to take it and what their next step is. The raids that are happening throughout the United States are completely pointless, and I'd love to see the numbers because I'm willing to bet that more migrants came here than they've deported since this started a week ago. Uh, so we'll have to see. But that's kind of my thoughts on what's likely to happen. And is he going to drag MAGA through the mud with him? I don't know. We'll have to see.
I don't know if you saw earlier, but there's a what they call a doomsday clock, as presented by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. They've moved the needle on the clock closer to midnight, meaning that ultimate destruction of our planet is more imminent than not. They cited things like proliferation of nuclear arsenal and war, climate change, and the rejection of climate action as one of the key reasons as to why they believe doomsday is more imminent than not in this current state of affairs.
Yeah. I had the thought like a week ago, do I think Trump will actually use nuclear weapons? And I haven't had the courage to sit down and think about it very hard. So, um, maybe that'll give you some insight. I guess we'll have to see. But I don't have a lot of faith that he is not going to do something like that. Because you got to remember, like, so this is a situation that's happening, that's emerging in the United States right now. Our allies are beginning to rally against us. Donald Trump is going to have economic might flexed upon him, and how he reacts is going to become increasingly bad, right? But these countries probably aren't going to do more than what Trump is doing. They're just going to get even. All countries getting even at the United States at the same time or at similar times, or just sort of this domino effect, which I expect that we will see, is everybody's like, we can't tolerate this. He's going to lose it. He's going to absolutely not be able to handle it. They're raise him. He's just going to keep going. And Congress could get a hold of him, but then he's just flailing because he doesn't have anything else to threaten. So I kind of tend to think that when he finds out that these other countries do not like him or his policies and are not going to just bend the knee like every other American multinational corporation, he's going to lose it. And then what happens next, I have no idea. Um, I guess we'll have to see. It looks like they're planning to invade God knows how many countries. It is funny.
Hmm.
I was told Biden's going to, I hope you're ready to get drafted,
I know.
drafted to go. And now they're like, you're getting drafted to
You're
go to
gonna fight in Ukraine,
Greenland.
right?
You're getting drafted. Let's go. Game
Um,
of
I
Thrones,
did
the
want
Mad
to.
King. Yeah.
I did want to include this in our news coverage here. You mentioned slippery slope here, the domino effect. I think ultimately Obergefell is going to fall. His actions today pertaining to gender affirming care for people under the age of 19 is one that rolls back progress. He did an initiative that rolled back funding and coverage for families through TRICARE, military families, directed the Department of Justice to pursue litigation and oppose the practice of gender affirming care. He's targeting every hospital, every program, every university that receives federal grants for gender affirming care. Earlier today, as well, signed an executive order banning the distribution of HIV treatment and medication towards 25 million people in 54 different countries. That's a complete opposite set of priorities as to where we've been over the last 10 years.
And we were told that he was the most pro LGBTQ president in American history.
Yes.
I just want to point that out. We were told that. And this is crypto fascism. They
Hmm.
never supported it. They don't support it. If you're part of the LGBTQ community and you're Republican, they're going to lock you up first. They
Right.
do not support you. They never have, they never will. They're coming for your rights. They've written over 500 bills in the last 2 years. It's probably more now, as tracked by the ACLU, to target the LGBTQ community. And that's what they're going to do. And you sort of see this. This is I mean, when you look across the history of America, what you're watching is really a late reaction to the effects of the civil rights and the civil right war that happened in the United States. That's what you're really watching, is a backlash to that, where some guys come in and said, well, the last however many years went bad because of, insert
Hmm.
the marginalized group here. And then they start to undo everything. They undo everything because that's a huge part of their party, and they don't actually care. They don't care. It's not that Trump's like, I don't think that Trump's one way or the other. I do think that he was homophobic. I don't know that if he still holds those beliefs. I'm being completely honest, probably, but I don't know. And but let's just assume for a second, most Republicans that are like moderates or whatever probably don't give a shit, right? It's the Christians, and so they're going to appease them to try and, we don't care. We'll sign off on it because I'm sure that there's quite a bit of homophobia. Don't get me wrong about that, but they're not the Christians in terms of that. And so you have this entire group that wants to get rid of it. You have a lot of the group that just doesn't care. And then what happens is that will gets enforced. And that's where we are, right?
Hmm.
And especially that's especially true of politicians when you're talking about Roe v. Wade. It doesn't affect any of them. If they need an abortion, they can go to a blue state. It affects their constituents. And so that's sort of the situation that you have emerging is this complete reaction to even policies that MLK championed. When you're talking about affirmative action, right? Policies that helped. And then what happens is the economy goes bad, and suddenly these people that are screaming racist tropes now have a platform because people want to hear them. Well, what's wrong? What's happening? What's going on? And they blame everybody but the actual problem. That's really what it is. Oh, we got to
Hmm.
blame marginalized groups. We have to do that because they did it, not the billionaires that own everything. That's not why, right? And so it's this weird contradiction of simultaneously hating the billionaires, hating the current economic environment that we exist within, and also upholding it, advocating it, right? No minimum wage increase, no universal health care, no paid time off. You work until you die. I get to judge you for the job that you do as being bad labor, right? But also my
Hmm.
conditions are going really bad too. So why can't I blame you then? Shouldn't you get a better job? Why are you complaining about the economic
Right.
conditions if you don't want to do anything to fix them? And so that's what you have. And this is a very biological thing. This is ingrained in humans, is to blame the other. So that's kind of where we are in American politics right now. So go ahead, Gene.
I think there was one more story I wanted to touch up on. I'm trying to find it. Let's see here.
I have one. I have one that I posted over to the thing. There was a Newsmax anchor that mocked
Hmm.
someone talking about don't eat tacos,
Ah,
enchiladas,
yes.
anything if you're for this, and he's sitting there mocking them by eating a taco online and saying might call ICE during break. And I mean, this is just the sick, deranged, depleted people that we have in
Hmm.
existence. Just the truly like worthless human beings. It was so. It's just so. You know.
It was the federal workers buyout that I wanted to talk about. He's offering them 7 months of salary uh, as I guess, a benefit for their severance. And one of the responses I saw was from Andrew Yang, who posted and said that this is more generous than most companies would give in severance. That's not the point, though. It shouldn't be whether or not it's a generous move. It is very criminal what he's doing, very unconstitutional that he's forcing career servants out. It doesn't matter how much he pays them. These are people who are qualified to do their job and are now being tossed out in favor of loyalists. I don't care how much they're paid. They're competent. They shouldn't be forced to be removed. And this should not go unpunished. It's certainly something that should not be scrutinized. That's not without scrutiny. And here we
Yeah,
are.
and I did see, yesterday they're talking about like literally the Heritage Foundation is linking their emails with uh, government seals and sending them out. Nobody, these people are not elected officials. This
Hmm.
is illegal. This is very illegal, and they're sending out trying to create master lists of employees in the federal government. I'm not, and this is it. I mean, like when it's so hard to even track how bad this is because you have the aspect of like the government just won't be able to function, probably what they want, so they can sell it off and what the government does to private corporations. But they're talking about like gutting the government, just destroying things from security to intelligence to our military. The list goes on, where there's going to be major gaps in knowledge, in leadership, and the list goes on. And we've seen how this plays out through history. It's not well. It doesn't play out well. And like I don't think the market is going to react to this when jobs numbers starts coming in, when produce stops coming in. And so it's so multifaceted. It basically is just acceleration. It's just accelerationism. Everything, the worst possible things, all of the things that everybody complains about the government, that's what's happening. in simultaneous fashion. It's not even like the Bush administration where we would get like a month or two between bullshit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you see this
Yeah, it's
throughout human
every hour.
history where they come in and they gut, and then there's just holes. There's just there's holes in our intelligence, whatever. And I'm telling you, and I'm very concerned as an American that there is going to be major attacks in the United States because of the lack of leadership, because they're going to yes men, and it's going to make everything worse. And in terms of the United States military abroad, it's going to be even worse. It's going to be worse. It's going to create worse situations. We've talked about that on this show, that the United States interventionism in the Middle East has caused significant, far reaching effects that are still affecting not only that region, but the world, and has created a worse situation than previously was there, right? Because of missight, because of literally, we're going to be the world bully and go in and bully these two countries and create power vacuums. Everything bad is happening at once. I will say there's nothing really to do at this point but sit back and say, I told you so. Trump is going to come out of this probably in a few months as one of the most unpopular presidents in American history. Happened last time, likely to happen again. Nothing's going to get better from this point. The question is whether or not he's willing to stop, or whether or not he's willing to subject people to it indefinitely. Congress may be forced to act if this gets bad enough, but this isn't. This is a weird thing, and I think just from the politician side, you have a lot of moderates that are going to be watching the economy just straight up tank. Just it all goes south at once. They may try to hide the numbers or whatever, but it's not going to matter, right? People are going to know,
I will be
and
right
it's going to
back.
come out. So, no, you're good. So that's kind of it. Is like, how are they planning on defending what's going to be a horrific record, which is foreseeably stupid? Like, everybody's going to see food shortages. Everybody's going to see price increases. Everybody's going to see an increase in homelessness, and the list goes on. And Republicans are just sitting back and being like, okay. So I'm not really sure what the plan is politically. It may be that there's something that they have planned that I don't see, that none of us see, that no one's going to see until it happens. But right now, it just looks like they're setting themselves up for absolute catastrophe. So there's your news for the day. And yeah,